Okay, so I've shared a link with you to the Grok Learning Introduction to MicroBit course. Now, I know some of you have probably started it and some of you have done other work with the MicroBit in mandatory tech. We're not doing this course, we're actually just going to, right to the end, this last little bit here where it says MicroBit Playground, just so we have the editor that we can use and write a little program to get the MicroBit to collect some data for us. So we're going to turn it into a temperature data logger, and then we're going to go out and collect some temperatures around the playground. So just to recap, for those who have or haven't used this, there's a little bit of code at the top that you leave, you don't touch. What you probably have done so far is how to get the MicroBit. There's a simulator here to display things across the LED matrix. So this is a matrix of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5 LEDs, and you can get it to display things. So for example, if we type the command display, as in the display, and we say scroll, as in we want something to scroll across the display, we need these opening and closing brackets, and inside we can type stuff, but we need to start it with an apostrophe or quotation marks and type your message and make sure you close that. And this is text is called a string. Okay, so it's a string of letters. So if we run this, it displays across the MicroBit. So the MicroBit has a number of sensors on it. So I'm just going to pull up this screen here. So it can measure or sense the temperature and light. It can also sense motion, so if somebody shakes it, and it has a compass on it as well. So we're going to write a program for it to collect some temperature. Okay, so let's see if we can get it to display the temperature. So instead of displaying hello, if you type temperature spelt correctly, open close bracket, so now notice how many brackets I've got at the moment. And they come in pairs, so you can see it sort of shades the matching ones. So we've got these brackets here, and then if I click here, we've got an opening and closing bracket here. Now this piece of code here asks for the temperature from the MicroBit. So the MicroBit will, for example, it's currently 28 degrees in MicroBit world. So it should scroll the temperature across it. So let's try it. Okay, I did that deliberately, so don't worry. We have an error. Okay, there's some sort of error here. And the reason is, so I need to stop the code. All right, so what I did, I ran it. Doesn't work. I stopped it, and it highlights where the error is. The temperature is an integer, as in it's a number. It's a value, it's a number. So it's not a string, as in a piece of text. We have to make it into a string. So we just have to, in front of the temperature, type string, open bracket, and then we have to come across to here, so after this double bracket here, but before this last bracket. So it doesn't matter actually, but that's where the closing bracket would be for that one. So if we go put a bracket here, you can see this changes to this purpley color. Okay, and so we've got these pair of brackets, this pair of brackets, and then this pair of brackets. So let's run it. Okay, 28 comes across the simulator. Okay, and it only does it once. So we need to modify the code so we can get it to maybe continuously sense the temperature and display it so we can capture some data. Okay, but before we do that, let's get it to scroll some text, then scroll the temperature, and then scroll some other text afterwards. So if we type in display scroll, and I want it to firstly display, actually I'll just display the word temp with some colons, and then it will follow with the number, and then I want to make sure it displays the unit that we're measuring in. So we're measuring in degrees Celsius, not in, say, Fahrenheit. So we could say degrees Celsius. Okay, and let's run it and see what happens. Okay, temp colon 28 degrees Celsius. What we can do, we can type a loop. So, okay, but we're saying while true, display this information. So it's just going to keep displaying it over and over again. That's going to be a little bit too much to sit there and wait for. So I'm just going to reduce the amount of text and just simplify it here. So it's going to keep looping display T equals whatever temperature in degrees. Okay, so let's run. Watch what the simulator does. Okay, so temp 28, I'm going to increase it, and it's scrolling through now, so it's changing it. Okay, should be 12. Okay, so that's good. That's a good start. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of this code again and we want to collect some data. Say we want the MicroBit to maybe make 3 collections of temperature in a short range and then average the 3. So we're going to write, I'm going to show you how we do that. So what we do is set up what we call variables. So we give them a name. So I'm going to say temperature 1 equals the temperature. So it's going to record the temperature and save it as temp1. Then I want it to record another one. So it's going to save temp2. And then I'm going to do a third one. Now we could do more, but I think that'll be fine. But we don't want them to just quickly, collect them all, really quickly like that. So we need to put a delay in. So we ask it to sleep for, let's say 1 second. Now this is 1,000, so this is 1,000 milliseconds, which equals 1 second. So we put a sleep function in between each measurement, so it has a moment to, otherwise you're going to pretty much, it's not going to be any difference in temperature. It's not going to go up that quickly. You could even make it 2 seconds. All right, so what are we going to do with that data? Okay, so how do we take the average? We add up all the values and we divide by how many values we have. So we can do the same thing. So we're going to say total equals, and we add them. So we add this here, this variable, because that's where the value is saved. So we say the total equals temp1 plus temp2 plus temp 3. So these values will change, won't they? Depends on where you are, what temperature it is, and it will save 3 temperatures, add them all together. Now we want to take the average of those 3. So how do we do that? Well, that's easy. We just divide them by 3. So we need somewhere to save it. So these values added together get saved as a variable called total. So let's have a variable called average and say we need brackets here, total, which is these 3 added together, divided by, now this is what we use for division, or divide by 3. All right, so now we want to display the average. So we type in now display scroll and type average. Now, can anyone see what's going to happen here? This is a number, or what we call an integer. So if we ran it, we're going to get an error there. So just so you can see, it's running. Oh, we've got an error at this line here. And the reason is because to scroll things, we have to turn them into strings. So it means we've got to turn whatever this value is into a string. So it understands it's scrolling text or a string of information rather than, it won't scroll a number or integers. So let's run it now. I'm going to have this up high so I can adjust the thermometer. So it's recording. Now it's displaying 31. Now see it says 0.66666667. Okay, let's just get it to record in whole numbers rather than in these decimal places. The other thing you can do is make this an integer, not, okay, let's try that. Okay, so it's removed the decimal place, and that's fine because it's just going to give us whole numbers. Okay, that's fine. It makes it easier to read. So, all right, so we're going to put all of this into a loop. So in front of it, I'm going to say while true. Okay, and then I need to select all of this like so and press tab. Now if something happens, you accidentally delete, go Control Z and it undoes your mistakes. All right, so I probably want to add a few more things. So I've got 3 sleeps. It's adding them up. It's calculating an average. It's displaying the average, but I want to add this line here. I want it to say what is it displaying apart from just a number. I want it to say this is the temperature. Okay, well, we're not going to put degrees in because we know what they are. So let's just put another sleep, maybe for 1 minute, another sleep for 1 second. So it just adds another short delay. All right, so let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to change the temperature. So temp 28 degrees. All right, should be high now. I'm just going to do this. 45. So it's taking 3 temperatures fairly quickly and it's taking the average. Okay. All right, I think we might even now put a 2-second delay just so that when you go out to record them, you have a little bit of time in between measurements. Okay, so I'm going to run it again. So okay, that's good. All right. Okay, stopping it. Now, the last thing to do is to save it onto the actual MicroBit. So we're going to do that now. So you grab a MicroBit, plug in the USB cable, stick that into the computer, and you should get a message. Okay, so I'm getting a message that I've got MicroBit in H drive. So I shall now select and choose. So we'll just leave it for a bit and see if it should give me a message to say everything's okay. Okay, it's setting it up. Okay, now it's saying it's good to go. So, okay, so I'm going to download, and I need to locate the MicroBit drive here, and I'm going to give it a name that's a bit more suitable. So I'm going to call it temp logger, and then press save. So it'll take a little bit. Your MicroBit should start flashing, and once it's installed, it should start to flash the temperature across the screen. So it's taking measurements, and it should be recording and displaying the average temperature. Okay, so if it was working in the editor here, it should be working on your MicroBit. So if it's not working on your MicroBit, it's likely you might not have checked it here. Okay, so that's it for that tutorial.